Welcome to What We Made Possible, the podcast where we explore the power of healing and driving change for advocates, leaders, and change makers. The conversations here draw the connection between creating new possibilities in the world, possibilities of care, of belonging, of thriving for our communities, with stories of personal healing and loving relationship building. I'm your host, Patty Dayleg, leadership coach for social change. I spent a decade in nonprofits, government, and DEI, securing 6- and 7-figure opportunities for communities of color. And I've experienced firsthand the transformative power of compassion, healing, and belonging in making a bigger impact. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to What We Made Possible. This is the continuation of a series on healing tides, which is this amazing project that I get to work on with Pacific Islanders in Southern California, looking at healing and leadership. And today we have Heidi Quenga, who is a highly respected cultural leader and advocate dedicated to preserving Chamorro and Pacific Islander heritage. She served as the tenured executive director of the Kutturan CHamoru Foundation, KCF, which is a tuition-free nonprofit based in Long Beach, since '93, advancing Chamorro culture through music, dance, language, and peer mentoring rooted in the Mariana Islands. She's the first Pacific Islander to receive a California Arts Council Artist in Residence, and she holds the title of Fafanagui, which is a certified Chamorro cultural instructor. She serves as the vice president of the Pacific Islander Health Partnership, PIP, as well, and she's on the steering committee for the Southern California Pacific Islander Community Response Team, SoCal Pickert, which we heard from last time. So KCF is the oldest Guma, the oldest Chamorro dance house outside of the Mariana Islands, and the oldest in the continental U.S. It has been such an honor to work with Heidi these past 2 years, and I'm so excited to have you here today. Welcome, Heidi.
You do as well. Thank you, Patty. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So something that I usually ask folks coming into this conversation, because this is about what we make possible, right? It's about possibility. And so I like to ask, what's something in your current reality, something in your day-to-day life that a former version of you didn't think was possible?
I would say just the longevity of, being a part of this community in terms of, being a nonprofit, being able to have sustained so many families and participants in the work that we do. KCF was bestowed to myself and Joey, and his mom was just like, do your best, but please don't ever charge the kids to learn about their culture. And as a, financial background, an accounting background, management background, that was just not a good business plan. But we made it work. And I think not realizing that, it could last 33 years now and continue, that is probably the piece that really would my younger self, didn't really realize that, the commitment level and the sustainability of the work would be over 3 decades now. So yeah.
Yeah, 3 decades and multiple generations within families.
Yeah, we have a great grandmother who brings her great granddaughter to some of our classes. So yeah, just the waves or the generations even that have come through. They're now bringing their grandkids or their own children. And they grew up with us. So it's we learned early on that we had to grow with the community, and that was important to continue to be multi-generational and to allow like anybody with just the heart to want to learn more and be a part of our work. So yeah,
That's a beautiful thing. So, what first called you into this work and what keeps you in it?
I think what called me was that I'm a military dependent and I was born in Europe. I was not born in the Marianas, but my parents had just such a strong, deep rooted heritage as Chamorros. And we took it wherever we went. I grew up all over the US and ended up as close to Guam as I could, and that was Hawaii. And I think there is where, family would come through all the time. And I was kind of like the tour guide. I was in middle school. I didn't know how to drive, but I knew how to get get to everywhere. So, I mean, I knew all the way through my mom's second cousins and their children. So that's a pretty huge family. I personally have, 24 first cousins on my mom's side, but we were all raised like siblings. So, I think that growing up away from the islands just had that deeper want to share the culture with those who never been or have a grandparent, even like it's a distant understanding of what it is and what it means to be Chamorro.
Yeah. So, you grew up
So
away from the Marianas. What was it like to go home, if you will? Like that first time that you got to go there?
yeah, I was actually 7 years old, and we were flying from Germany, and we were with two other families who, the kids hadn't been home either. And so arriving there, it was like paradise, right? People looked like me. I had all these relatives who loved me and had never met me, but I felt the love. And even my grandparents, my maternal grandparents were there, and we just kind of that growing up in Parisville and Tamaning was just to me going there, when we could was like being home. I felt so comfortable and so accepted that you know that experience was always the feelings and the acceptance that I wanted any Chamorro kid of any, even if they were, I always tell them like, it doesn't matter how much Chamorro is, part of your actual daily life, but it's running through your veins. So I just always wanted to pass on that feeling of acceptance, that feeling of love and support that I got when I arrived there at such a young age.
Yeah. And now, with the organization being over 3 decades old, what keeps you in it?
What keeps me in it, and it's funny because we just returned to our workshops this past Sunday, and I had the opportunity to go home during the holiday and do some work out there with Gimet and Guma. And what keeps me going is seeing the excitement of those who don't have like this organized group to go to, whether you're an artist or you're a mom or you're just kind of, you know, a family that's been away for a long time. There was just so much love like at rehearsal this past weekend, and I told them, I keep doing this because you guys keep coming back. And even if just one of you shows up, I promise you I will be there. So that's really the depth of my commitment, is even if one child shows up, I will continue to help them, and I will run that workshop as if 100 of us were there. So yeah, it's I know the feeling. I know the feeling of being the only Chamorro or the only Pacific Islander in the whole entire school, other than my brother. But my brother is older, so he was at a different, a higher education level. So I was probably always the only kid until we got to North Carolina. There was a lot of Chamorros there. Hawaii, of course, there were Chamorros there, but in San Francisco, the Presidio, there were a couple families. But yeah, we were as tight as can be because they were so far and few between.
Yeah. And to like kind of carry that with you, that feeling of like you are enough as you are, and regardless of blood quantum or anything, like you, if you have that ancestry, then like this is part of you as well. I love that. You are the kind of like second generation coming into you came into leadership of KCF as the second ED, right? So I'm curious, who else do you carry with you when you lead? Like who is like almost like in the room with you spiritually and culturally? Yeah. And how does that guide just like how you show up in the day to day?
For sure, Glenn Titano Bernardo, he kind of helped start the group. He did a lot of the choreography with Joey's mom, and they wrote we have a book of chants from them from the early 90s, and we still use those today as our guiding force. Joey's grandma, Mama Anita, she was always there cooking for the kids, making her famous fried rice, and always feeding them. And in the early years, that's what, I remember the kids saying now they're adults and bring their own children, that they always looked forward to that. So I do carry them, as well as Cheyenne. Cheyenne Angelica was a lead dancer, and we have a scholarship, in her name that we provide every year for gosh, 10 years now. And her family has always supported the work that we do. So in her name, we always say her name by offering that two $1,000 scholarships. So Cheyenne is always with me as well as my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and my grandparents. So I I have their pictures. I even celebrated them when I was in Guam, and we created, an altar while we were doing, ritual and ceremony in during the full moon, and really honoring those that have left us. And I definitely keep them with me always too.
That's a beautiful thing.
So
I'm I'm so curious because working with you all in these past few years through Healing Tides, it's clear to me that like Pacific Island organizations operate differently than like Western or like American kind of like orgs. I'm curious how like these cultural values, these ancestral teachings, this this set of like teachings that you have, how does that impact how you approach, say, governance or fundraising, right? Like it's clear the line when it comes to when you're actually like sharing the cultural teachings, but I'm curious what it looks like in how you actually like work with other leaders on the board and on the executive team.
yeah, I think while we're teaching, dance, music, or chants, that in there are those stories and those, you know, proverbs, or those cultural values that they learn. And even, our board itself, they are part of our dance program, our language program, or when it comes to even fundraising, like we know we don't charge. So then when we do actually have a fundraiser, that it's all going into one basket, and that, because we don't charge, those funds go to cover like any formal trips that we go to. We've gone to like the Congressional Guam Liberation in Washington, D.C. So we'll bring a team out there. It goes to their costuming and any of their cultural garb that we provide for all of, our presentations and performances throughout the year. So I think when it comes to understanding that it's more like mutual aid and mutual respect, that reciprocity we call inafan maulik, which is the betterment of for everybody, that you don't expect anything in return, and understanding that basic Chamorro value is kind of how our entire organization runs, and even how we interact with others. We are trusting, and we are always very open with everyone until, it until there, is a situation, but we tend to work it out because we have just this understanding of, yeah, we have this understanding between each other, that, we come with open arms, and that whatever we have is what we give. And, a lot of folks that are Chamorro, or understand the culture, understand the reciprocity. With that comes Chinchuli, and Chinchuli is a gift or a task or a talent that you share. the Americanized way would understand that as to be just money, just an exchange of money. But we teach the kids that it's not, that if there is a funeral, if there is a party, if there is something that has happened, that we can go and we can help cook, we can help clean, we can help set up the chairs, we can, do the lawn and things like that. We can do these tasks to help support the family and not expect anything in return. So I think that basic enough and Malik, you know, way of living is important for us as Chamorros,
Mm.
and to share, and sure we share with other Pacific Islanders as well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think it's that kind of like sense of like we are connected. And so like when I am in need, like I can expect that folks will show up for me, and in knowing that deep just like knowing of like being connected, being able to then give. And I mean, it's not really like an expectation in the sense of it being transactional, but
Right.
it is like I'm here for you, and you're here for me kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess I'm curious how our work together in Healing Tides has shaped any ways that you lead or any ways that you show up for a community. That focus, I think, on like healing, and that focus on, yeah, on like sustainability, right? Like, yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, I think it opened up my eyes as well as Bobby, who was part of it as well. He's our financial director, just in a way that being more open and transparent in the way of your own personal sustainability and healing. I think that was important. And even just opening up about what's holding us back from expanding or holding us leaders back from just going for it. We tend not to ask for funding and just kind of stay in our own circle of supporters when we really need to get out there and share all of the success, all of the milestones, that the kids have accomplished over the decades. And so I think Healing Tides is really just help us understand that in the community, we will always stay grass rooted, but that we have to also remember that it's okay to to expand and to think big and to go for it. So
Mm.
yeah, we stayed stagnant for some time, but we always, set goals. We set out to expand, and I helped create and co-found Unuhit, which is a dance group, a sister group to Kutturan CHamoru Foundation in San Diego, and then also, and they've hit their 13th year, and then we have, yeah, Hale Paragupa out in Maryland, because we would go out to the East Coast every year and do workshops. So they've been around since 2017. Yeah, it's kind of amazing how just a little bit of work, even online, we were already using Zoom back then to just get each other prepared and supported, and we were getting ready for FestPac in Guam in 2016 at the time, and Sita just wanted to do more for the community and for the kids out there. So that's what happened. And then now, some of our dancers, our board members, have moved outside of California or Southern Cal, and are in Texas. So we have groups there that we support. Tahita, which means, for us, is also the name of our language program. But one of our board members, Trisha, had started a group out there in Dallas, and she brings together all of the Gumas that are in Killeen and San Antonio and Dallas, and they do all of the opening and closing ceremonies for all the liberations that happen out there. So it's just really nice to see this happening. We've done work in, Tacoma, in Everett, in Portland, and now there's a couple groups in Las Vegas. So it's just really like wanting to expand our ideas of how, our culture can be and should be, taught to the next generation through dance and movement.
There's clearly some like special sauce that like KCF is over 3 decades old. You have some kind of sister organizations that you helped found that at least one of them is over a decade old. What what do you think that is?
I don't know. It's funny because today is Janice, her birthday, and she's actually the leader of Uno Hit. And I just, wished her a happy birthday and just told her that I appreciated our journey together into teaching the next generation, and that I appreciated our friendship. And I think that's what it is that the relationship building that happens and the support that we provide through KCF, and just the deep connection that each board member has, and looks out for one another and all the families that are a part of us, as well as return or out, or just out in the world. We try to stay connected as much as possible, but I think it's that relationship and that connection that we have that has been able to sustain with even $0 to the littlest, to the fewest dollars. I think I told her that, it's really our ancestors that shine that light upon us, and keep us, on the path of hopefully ensuring that the next generation knows who they are, where they came from, and where they're headed. Because without knowing the past, you really don't have a path or a journey, like, a way to understanding who you are without, knowing and understanding the past and present.
Yeah. I hear that. It's the relationships, it's the people, it's the multi generations. It is like looking out for each other, even in the stagnancy that you had mentioned. I would imagine that in a 33-year-old organization, that not every year is going to be a growth year, but that there's also going to be moments of like not shrinking is the word that I'm looking for, but like kind of like hermiting
Expand
a
and
little bit. Yeah,
contract.
expanding and contracting. And so
Yeah.
I guess I'm curious because the contracting also has a role, right? There's a reason why we do that as well. So you mentioned that in Healing Tides, you were like ready for this expansion. You're like starting to go for it in different ways. And that obviously has its own kind of energy and benefit. I'm curious in the time of contraction, what that has been like for KCF, and in what ways has it been challenging, and in what ways has it served you as well?
Yeah, I think, even personal relationships, right? They ran their course, or even the long, like, our season is a long time. It starts in January, doesn't really end until, October. There are some lulls like in April, May, and then from October to November. So then what we did was we had to, like, create new programs, or create other programs to grow with those who don't want to dance, those who don't want to be a band member. So we started the immersion camp, and that was the 10th year anniversary, was last year. And that's where the kids from ages 13 to, early 20s get to go and stay for 3 days and 2 nights on a campus like UCLA or Cal State Long Beach. And I bring in facilitators, cultural experts, or even just elders that have an expertise in something that has to do with our culture, or they have gained success in whatever that measure of success is, that they use their cultural values to get them to that point. So it's even putting, examples of success in front of the kids in different ways,
Mm.
and teaching them the language, through song is great, as well as chanting, the memorization of that. But a lot of the comments are that they want more, they want more, they want the cap longer. But funding is always, a strain on that. But I think that, just changing the ways that we do things also helped, and staying consistent, when we can. So not always having our classes at 2 o'clock on Sundays, including during the pandemic. We lost so many dancers because they're just like, we're online for school. Now we have to be online for dance. But so we went and got, a mini grant through I think it was PIC, and Neil Tinkham, one of our community members who's a film director, he was like, I want to record you guys if it's possible through COVID. And we created a video and a chant that we eventually were able to present at, PIFA in San Diego, one of our biggest, presentations of the year. So creating that online was like a whole nother, you know, level, but it kind of spiced up, the kids that you can still learn and create content, new content that feels, a little bit ancient, in the ways of the old ways. And even learning how to just exercise your mouth and your lips and the writing restraints and all that kind of thing. It was exciting. And then to see it go around for a whole year, and go around the different movie and Asian Pacific Islander cinema events and things like that was exciting. So I think when we contracted, it was like, okay, we got to think quick. We got to see what's happening. And I think everybody was kind of in that mode too when it was during COVID. So, but earlier in the years, it was, just looking for the next event that would excite the kids. Like we became a partner, actually like a founding partner of the Pacific Islander Festival at the aquarium in Long Beach. And the kids, they have to do like 3 presentations, and then they get the rest of the day to spend at the aquarium. So it's things like that. It's like we try to figure out other ways to not only educate, others about our culture, but to make it fun and exciting for the kids to be able to participate. That's what I've noticed, that always try to find other ways to just, kind of invoke a different feeling. In 2024, we went to the Festival of Pacific Arts in Hawaii, and we brought, I think, 35 dancers out there from Texas, from San Diego, and from Long Beach and Orange County. And I mean, that was like amazing. They're already asking, when are we going to go again? But yeah, it's just trying to find something new that the year, in the early part of the year, to look forward to. And that's kind of how we change up when it comes to that part of trying to find something new or something exciting to look forward to. I think what we're looking forward to now is possibly getting them back to Guam or the Marianas. We haven't been back since 2002 and 2004, when there used to be a dance competition out there. So we're hoping to do something like that soon, to get them out there and really put their feet in the sand again. 2016 was the last time we were able to bring a team out there.
Wow, so almost a decade, or a decade.
A decade, yeah.
A decade, oh, a whole decade getting their like feet in the sand. That
Yeah.
that like that image to me is like it's so like I can feel it, right? Like I can feel like the feet in the sand, like feeling the water, seeing the sun, like looking at I've never been to the Marianas, but like looking at like community and like folks' homes and buildings and like seeing all of it and being there with people who look like you and dancers from the continent or wherever folks live, that will be such a beautiful moment for folks who are there for the first time and then folks who are coming back with you after a decade.
Yeah, I can say there's like more than 2 handfuls, 3 handfuls of dancers that have never flown. And KCF has always been like, no matter what trip we go on, there's always someone or 2 or 3 who have never flown or have never been anywhere outside of California, because we accept everyone and we don't expect anyone to pay anything. So, we have a lot of families that are underserved, that are, you know, working check to check, or just look to KCF for refuge because, we have other resources, to help with health, food insecurities, or, just connecting them with possible job, placement and things like that, just because of the different connections that we have out there. So, yeah, it's really been a place for kids to really grow up and want to and learn to give back because of,
Mm,
everything that they've gained from the work that we do in the community.
that's beautiful. Getting to go on this like cultural immersion trip for free, right? And not have to pay a penny for it. That's a beautiful thing. I'm I'm curious for you, like, because you have this other many other roles in community and professionally. What helps you personally, like as Heidi, to feel restored, to feel nourished, to continue showing up?
I think, well, for one, like me going back just recently, definitely was a refueling of my soul and my spirit. With Gimatanguma, there was, we had a call out for eight artists to come and join us to do these workshops for a week and learn about grief and learn about how we can restore ourselves and release that grief through ritual, through ceremony, through chanting. And 30 people show up and their children. So it was probably about 40 of us every day for a whole week. And just knowing and seeing that alone was amazing because it's like, even back home, they are also looking for a place of refuge, a place of gathering, a place of, restoration. It's what's connecting us is through our culture and the belief in our ancestors. So I feel like it's everywhere, but being home, even back home, they too are just as hungry as the kids out here and the families out here to just stay connected with the community and our culture. So for me personally, it's when I see that connection or when I meet someone who just wants to learn a little bit more about themselves, a little bit more about their background, a little bit more about how to connect with their creativity, right? It's we had a community activation and the things that came out of it, jewelry making, there was painting, we created an altar. We did a tour or we did a tour to the Talafofa Caves where we did some work up there, some restorative work. And it was really like being present and like seeing each other and being there for each other, whether we spoke to each other or not. It was just, you can feel the energy. Even when we chanted, you can feel the vibration in the voices. So that's one way that I would definitely find, a way to restore my want and my drive to keep going. But it's really too that the kids just they can say one thing to me and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna keep going. I have to keep going, because they still want to do this. They keep showing up. And no matter how, like, I will always say, one more time, Tatlu, let's do this again. They know that when I say that, it's really, we're going to keep doing it over and over. But they don't complain. They keep doing it. So I think it's that repetition and that support that they understand that, we just want to make sure everyone is in sync, and we're doing this as a group and we move as a group. So yeah, it's those little places when I can go get away and just restore. Even when I sleep, I find myself when I go to sleep, I dream off in La La Land. And many times, like the kids will ask, "Oh, what are we gonna do for this presentation or that presentation?" And it's like, the older dancers, the veteran dancers know, like, Auntie Heidi just has to sleep. The ancestors will speak to her, in her dreams. So they are learning to tap into that as well. So
Mm. And is that something you're teaching them, or is it something that they are just kind of tapping into because they are connected in that way?
I believe they're learning it. They're learning it on their own because they know that's how I connect. with the ancestors, So we're teaching them to kind of a little bit of meditation, a little bit of, you know, through that ritual and ceremony of chanting, that even in the vibration of the chant that they can find that inner peace, that kana,
Mm. Mm.
respecting them and learning to listen and trying to figure out, like, what are they trying to tell you. So,
Mm.
obviously we make mistakes, we try different ways, but we just understand that there is always something there that's there to support us. And if we
Mm.
can find a way to tap into that, because even the kids, like, when we do presentations, I always make sure that they are holding something from the land. So the boys are using a tunis. These are, wooden sticks that come from the island. The girls are gifted and bestowed, like, cocoa skirts that are from the trees from back home, so that when they move, that they're moving with their ancestors, that they're moving with the
Mm.
land. And it's those kinds of little things that I hint to them. I have an alahas ceremony when I can, every year, where it's jewelry. That's what alahas is, like, we're giving it to them as they move up in their journey, to hopefully a Fafanagui like myself, because there's only 14 of us that have been bestowed that title from, Sina Frank Rabon. And, we're not going to be here forever. So it's just hoping to just instill and drop those seeds. But it's mostly also just, even in our motto of, in our movements we reach for our roots. So whether, we gather and we're doing work, get out the vote, get out the vaccine, or just trying to help folks understand, a little bit more about cancer and Pacific Islanders, and how, our data is just not disaggregated enough. It's like, no matter what we do, that we always carry our ancestors are with us, and that someone is always watching. So, you stay humble and respect those that are around you and doing the work with you. So
Yeah. I was gonna ask kind of like how you stay tapped in and how you stay kind of like open to those signs and messages, but I think what I'm hearing is that there's no stop to the connection. That every little detail in how you work in the ceremony and in the materials that you use is always kind of connected to that land and connected to home and to that feeling. You are one of 14 Fafanaguis, like certified teachers of Chamorro culture in the world.
in the world.
Um, in the whole world, the whole last world, Heidi.
Yeah, I
and
know.
and also I'm curious what you are learning from the kids. Like, what are you learning from the younger generations that kind of like gives you a glimpse of this next generation of Fafanaguis?
Think, I mean, stay woke, right? Maybe that's a little old, but just to stay alert and stay on top of, their what they're going through, and invoking here and there those little gems of, old fashioned knowledge, or, like, values that get thrown in there. I always, like, have them huddle up, and then, we'll get started. But I want to find out from them, like, oh, like, just this past weekend I was saying, what brought you here and what keeps you here, but also what's your hope for this year? Instead of saying what's your goal or what's your, I try to change the verbiage, and it's like, what's your hope for this year? And a few of them are like, oh, I want to learn something more about my culture. I want better grades, so it's like on a positive. A couple of them were like, I just want to get through school, our younger boys. But I think letting them even, like, just run around and not yelling at them to stop and things like that, like, just allowing them to have their freedom and fun, because it's kind of like a big friendship, circle, or big family outside of their own immediate family, that I want them to feel comfortable in themselves when they're there. But I think really finding out, what's the haps on what's going on, who do they like to listen to, the type of music they like to listen to, or, just the newest like trend or something. I want to make them laugh. Like there was one of my dancers, Teo, who was just like, she's the only one who could make Auntie Heidi do this, like, those TikTok dances or whatever a couple years ago. So I just do silly things too to make them laugh.
And when you imagine them as like this next kind of wave of Chamorro leaders, what do you see for them?
Oh, what do I see for them? I see like possibility. I see like endless possibility. I see them, I have a few that are just amazing, like chefs, amazing writers, amazing, just even passionate about the younger generation too. Like, because we always like, when we teach, I always like humble them to where you're not up here. Like we have to get the new dancers, to come to the same level as you. So I make them work towards getting us all together and working together. So I just want them to continue that of always remembering to humble yourself. And as you work at, together as a community and not solo, like in a silo by yourself like that. Yeah, I just really want and hope to see them continue that type of of working together and moving together.
Yeah, so different from the idea of like a primary dancer or like a prima. Like there's no kind of like star, but everyone is
I
kind
mean,
of
there's the finetna, which is the front, to be in the front, to be first.
mm,
They work themselves up there, but they know that at any point when they're not helping, they're not assisting, they're not, you know, volunteering for things, they're not volunteering to do this kind of thing. Like they know that that position starts to fade, and but they know too that everyone's going to be seen regardless. Everyone gets their point. We break out in subgroups too, but multiplying and actually duplicating yourself, right, is important. And duplicating yourself and what is the way that we give and we provide that reciprocity. So they should know not to keep it to themselves because you can't take it with you. And so I've always made sure to teach that. Us also is to just make sure that they don't keep what they know that they always give, that they provided out.
yeah. That's so important, obviously, for the work that you're doing specifically with Chamorro culture, but also in just like leadership in general. We see that, I mean, in our current kind of like political environment, too much of like scarcity and holding on to like
Yeah.
my position versus this idea of like, no, we are sharing this this sense of leadership and I'm duplicating myself so that this continues beyond just me and my own kind of position. Is there anything else that you want to share about KCF or your work, your experience in Healing Tides?
I think the experience with Healing Tides, because we also were able to bring in two other board members, Tara and Angel, and then they having the experience of seeing how other organizations and other leaders see KCF. And it just helped to reconfirm and rejuvenate them as well to want to do more, to want to participate more, to want to help the organization grow more. So I think it was important for them to see how we are viewed outside of our little, our homeland cultural center activities that we do, or at PIM, Pacific Islander Ethnic Art Museum. So I just want folks to know that it's possible that if you want to start your own organization, you want to start your own, path to helping teach the youth, like we are more than open to help and support that growth because again, we don't want to be the only one. We don't want to be the only Guma left after, 100 years. We want it to continue because it's our way that we have found to drive in the youth, and then we've learned to grow with them to make sure and ensure that they come back with their families at any point and any time, because our doors are always open. So
Mm. Okay, y'all, you heard it here. If you are thinking of starting your own cultural organization, your own guma, then please reach out. Heidi has been part of the creation and duplication of this work across the continent and is connected to all of these teachers from across the world. And we will link, all of KCF and Heidi's links in the show notes, and so that they can connect with you all. And if you want to support KCF with your funds, with your time, with your energy, then, also feel free to reach out. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me, Heidi. I loved learning about all of the tiny little details that you offer to community, as well as hearing about your dreams. And yeah, I so appreciate you. I loved working with you during Healing Tides, and I'm so excited to see what KCF is doing next.
yeah, Jesus Masi, you were my coach, and I loved having you. You're a great listener, and the feedback that and the relationship that we built during that time was amazing, and I hope it continues. And I thank you for allowing us to share a little bit about the work that Kutturan CHamoru Foundation does, and this is a great way to do it. So, Jesus Masi.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for allowing me to witness you. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. Thank you for listening to What We Made Possible. I really hope this episode resonated. As a coach, I always end with action steps, and so I invite you to do something, which is to pause and ask yourself, what resonated? What am I taking away? And what's possible for me and my community now? If you liked this conversation, please leave a review and a rating. It helps so much. Thanks again.